couple years ago, as happens every semester, I talk about discrimination. And, I talk about, how much is there? Because this is the question. Last couple classes, we talked about inequality and what are we going to do about that and what do we think about it and how to manage it and this kind of thing, right? The origins of it, why it continues and this sort of thing. But I always talk about discrimination because, this is the thing. To what degree do we get treated differently because of who we are, what we look like, all sorts of things, right? Well, we know there's discrimination because that's just, people discriminate. And I don't mean discriminate like it's such a bad thing. We discriminate. I like green apples and not red apples, right? I mean, everybody makes decisions about things, right? Things we like and we don't like. And, this is the nature of things. And in this particular class, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to act out something that I did in this one segment that really went viral. And what I said was, when you start talking about discrimination, the first thing you got to know is this. There's a lot more discrimination happening in the United States on the basis of race and gender and so on, right? Culture, religion. There's a lot more happening than some people want to believe there is. And at the same time, there's a lot less happening than other people want to believe there is. And so somehow we got to sort through this. And it's really difficult. We can't just ask people, right? I can't just say hey, have you been discriminated against? How often are you discriminated against because you're a woman? Right? Well, first off, how does she know? And secondly, why would I trust her? But mostly you don't know. Most discrimination we don't see. First off, she wouldn't see it. She wouldn't know. And secondly, why would I trust that she is reasonable and thoughtful? Right? Because everybody overestimates. We all overestimate our abilities and our potentials. So, if I don't get a job or if something bad happens to me, let's say I don't get a job or I don't get something that I really want. I apply for something, I don't get it. A large segment of us seem naturally inclined to overestimate our own abilities and think maybe it wasn't fair. And I think I'm qualified for that. I should have got that, or, I'll give you an example of this. People did a survey of 400,000 high school seniors. And they asked 400,000 high school seniors, whether they thought that they were above average in their ability to get along with one another. Above average is 50%, 51% and above, right? Above average. 99% of the high school seniors said that they were above average in their ability to get along with others. And we see this kind of thing all the time. And so I'm not going to ask, can I ask people? So if we're going to talk about race, what am I going to ask black and brown people? When's the last time you were discriminated against? Or have you been? Or how much does it affect your lives? What do they know? What do they know? How do you know? How would you know? If you ask me, how much does it affect me that, the way students perceive me, the fact that I'm 60 years old now as opposed to when I first started teaching and I was, 24. It's how would I know? I don't know. I can only give you a sense of it. You would imagine I might have some idea, but I don't know. I have no idea. And so you can't, and I think about all the stories that I hear about discrimination, right? I think about, I thought of this story the other day. I don't think I ever told it. About 15 years ago or so, my wife and I were cruising down Route 80. And, we're going 65 or something, right? And this car blows past us. I mean, just it was out of sight before we even practically saw it, right? A couple miles up the road, the car was pulled over by the police, getting a ticket. And it had a black driver and a black passenger. And I said, oh, okay, well, there you go. And I was happy that they got pulled over, frankly, because it startled me and it was really dangerous. You can't drive that fast. It's a dangerous thing. So I think we pulled into a rest area for a couple minutes and pulled back out, and we're driving down the road. So about a half hour later, boom, same thing. Car flies past us. And I said, oh my God, that's the same car. They must be trying to make up time. 2 miles down the road, they're pulled over by another state trooper, getting another ticket. And I think to this day, what's the likelihood that when they tell that story of getting pulled over, and they say, yeah, we got pulled over driving while black twice in a 45-minute period, what's the likelihood that they also say, and we were driving like 100 miles an hour? What's the likelihood? Versus, yeah, I've been discriminated against. The state police, they pulled me over twice in 45 minutes. So am I going to listen to them? It's like, you know what I mean? Because there's always this way of deflecting, and so we don't know. And so listen, so what we do is we have to be very careful, because you have to identify what the discrimination is and whether it's really happening. And you got to really, you got to weed out everything else. So we do these things. We call them audit studies. And an audit study is an experiment that you put together. You have to simulate reality. So in this case, we would get drivers to do the same thing. We get white drivers and brown drivers and black drivers, and we train them, and we'd make sure that they had the exact same car and they looked alike and so on. And we'd have them go out on the road and do the same maneuver and see which ones of them got pulled over by the police, right? This kind of thing. It's an audit study, right? Or like you apply for a job, right? And, you want to, well, why don't I... Anyway, hang on. Before I do this, I'll demonstrate this, but let me say this. We do these audit studies. They're carefully planned out. They cost a lot of money, but we use actors, and we train the actors, and we get them to act a certain way and do certain things, and then we put them in these situations to see what the response is. Okay? So we might get 2 women, and we'll have these 2 women do the exact same thing, day after day after day, in the exact same place, and one's wearing a hijab, and the other one isn't. So we're going to see, how do people respond to women wearing a hijab compared to women who don't? And then you do this thing where you set it all up and you control for everything, and then we measure and see what happens. So someone did a meta-analysis of these audit studies. And again, this is the best way to find any kind of discrimination, right? And they did a meta-analysis, it's like 25 years of audit studies, 55,000 cases of people, all sorts of studies, different things, looking at different things, but these are like experiments. 55,000 cases, different individuals who went through this thing, right? And what they find when we're looking at employment audit studies, because most often it's employment audit studies, but there are some others as well, that white people, on average, right? This meta-analysis stopped about 5 years ago. White people, on average, get 36% better response than the black people in the audit study. And 36% is pretty serious. Now, in Hispanic, white people get a 24% more positive response than Hispanic or Latinx people. Now look, what's really important is that I know that there are some of these academics who start with the idea that there is discrimination, and they're going to design the study in such a way to find the discrimination because that's just what they want to do. But I'm an academic, and I have colleagues, and I read this stuff, and I talk to them, and I know who they are, and I'm watching this, and I've been watching it my whole life. Most people, the vast majority of us, are really trying to get at the truth. And we might be misguided in this way or misguided in that way, but we're really trying to get at the truth. And if that's the case, again, not asking people, if that's the case, that's actually pretty high. And in fact, it's much higher if we ask black people, if we ask Latino people, if they've been discriminated against or how often, or if in that one situation where they discriminated against, the number is actually lower because they don't know and they don't see it. But when we carefully design the study, it's actually higher. And 36 and 24% is actually pretty high. Like that, but it's in a slow decline. it is declining. Like discrimination, things are, in spite of what some people want to say, things are getting much, much better. In spite of the headlines, in spite of everything, you read about the police and so on. Look, I study the police, I work with the police, we're going to talk about the police. Things are getting better. They're getting a lot better, actually. And there's a slow decline, okay? So we can keep saying they're not, but the truth they are, and the data are showing that they are. So I'm going to walk you through one of these, and then I could use a couple volunteers.
I'm Matt.
Where are you from?
Hampton, New Hampshire.
Hampton, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
All right, Mom. How big is Hampton, New Hampshire?
I think it's like probably 10,000 people.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, Mom. All right. How about you?
Hi, my name is Mustafa. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Allentown, Pennsylvania. All right. Mustafa and Matt. That'll be easy for me. Okay, so here. I'm going to give you your resumes. So mind you, the resumes are exactly the same. And what we're going to do is I'm going to train you to be part of these audit studies, okay? And so this is what we would do. Because you get these guys. First off, we're going to make, Mustafa's wearing sandals. Matt's wearing sneakers with low-cut socks. So we wouldn't want that. We want them to dress exactly alike, right? Matt would have glasses. If Mustafa has glasses, Matt would have glasses. Going to be the same height. They're going to shake hands the same way. So like, shake my hand. Okay, that's perfect. Don't do that so much. Just got it. Perfect. All right. And so when you talk, we want you to have the similar accent. We want you to look when you look at me and say hello. Don't say hi. Say hello and look me in the eyes and hold it for 3 seconds. Got it? Hold it for 3 seconds. Say hello. Walk in. Don't say any more. Here's your script. Here's exactly how you're going to do it. Your resumes are the same. You graduated from Ohio State. You graduated from Penn State. But you were both engineers, and you had a 3.5, and you had a 3.51, and you had similar clubs, and the whole 9 yards. We're going to make it exactly the same. This is how we do these audit studies. Because if it's not like that, if he's a sociologist and he's an engineer, what are we measuring for? Nothing, right? So we want to identify. We want them to be the exact same person, except that Matt's a white guy. Matt has light skin. And Mustafa has dark skin. He's a black guy. Okay? And we wouldn't give him the name Mustafa. We'd still call him Matt. We'd give you, or Michael. We'd call you Mike, and you'd be Matt. You see how this operates, right? It's how we're going to go here. And then what we want to do is we want to say, all right, so listen, what's going to happen? What are they going to experience? Because we really want to know, right? Don't you want to know? Because look, for me, as a sociologist, I want to know that they actually have a similar experience. That would be ideal for me. Because then we could move on with life, man. Like, can we stop talking about discrimination? Can we stop talking about racism? You know what I mean? Like, can we just stop? Let's move on. Let's talk about things that really matter, like global climate collapse. Something like that. So, we want to get it. We really want to get at the truth. So here's what we do. We send them in for these jobs. And they apply for these jobs, right? This is one study. There are lots of different studies, but this is just one particular one, right? And we say, like, okay, we're going to switch back and forth. Sometimes Matt's going to have a criminal record, and sometimes Mustafa is going to have a criminal record. And then sometimes we go back and forth, right? So he'll go in sometimes with a criminal record, sometimes without. Mustafa, same thing. We switch it up. But otherwise, those are the only two things. The criminal record and white and black, otherwise they're exactly the same person. They're literally a clone of one another. Are we in agreement there? We got it. Okay, so then we know, like, okay, let's assume there's some discrimination. Now, I know some people, hang on, let me speak right here. There are probably some people that think there's no discrimination whatsoever in the world. And I'm going to say there's always discrimination. There always will be. That's the nature of life. There's going to be some discrimination. In the world of race in the United States, I think we could assume that probably in terms of discrimination, most of the time, this guy is going to come out on top, okay, without a criminal record. I mean, most of the time. It's not a given, but for somebody like me who's reading the audit studies, who's reading this stuff. And again, remember, it's not as bad as you think it is, and it's sometimes a lot worse than we imagine it is, okay? But who's second most desirable? Is it going to be you with a criminal record? Or is it going to be Mustafa without a criminal record? The second most desirable. You got 4 choices, right? You with and without a criminal record, Mustafa with and without a criminal record.
So you're saying the first desirable choice is just...
The first choice, the person who's going to get the most callbacks, the person who got the most callbacks, is you without a criminal record.
Well, if we're basing it off that, probably me with one, just based off like the concept of discrimination in general. If the people that are, seeing me on a level playing field would picture me as first desirable, probably wouldn't matter.
The criminal record wouldn't matter? It's a felony conviction.
Okay, well that's...
It's a felony conviction.
If it's a felony, probably the clean record then.
So he would be the second most desirable.
Yes.
What do you think, Mustafa?
My initial thought would be I'm the second most desirable, but based off of like experiences and studies that have been done.
That you've seen?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So based off of that I haven't seen, I think him with the criminal record would be second most desirable. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a look at this. Next slide. So here is, so look, the most is the most callbacks, right? The percent receiving callbacks. We send you in for the same job. We're just sending you in, same job, right? 34% of the time, Matt without a criminal record gets a callback. And 17% of the time, Matt with a criminal record gets a callback. 14% of the time, Mustafa without a criminal record gets a callback. So look, here's the thing. Y'all like, I'm not in this game I'm in this game to get at the truth. Right? This is the nature of how this works, right? I really want to get at the truth. I really would like to retire and not talk about this stuff anymore. So if we could get this down to be equal, that's great for me. I don't have a bone to pick. I have no axe to grind. It's all good. But look at the difference here. How is that for you, Mustafa? Like to see that him with a criminal felony conviction is going to get more callbacks than you would when you have the same resumes. How is that for you? In this study, by the way.
Yeah. I think to not speak in so many words, it hurts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It hurts meaning that it just ends, so say just a little bit more.
The way that the world has been structured, specifically in the United States, so that even with the same qualifications, the same credentials, based off of like factors that I can't control, won't necessarily have the same outcome.
Okay, necessarily, right? So things are changing. Remember, over time, they're changing, right? Bro, how is it for you?
I mean, it's very upsetting to see, honestly. I don't think anybody, when going into a job, should be based on anything other than their credentials and experience. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be how it pans out. But yeah, just that's upsetting to see. Yeah. Upsetting.
So like, okay, maybe we'll come back to that. Okay. So here, listen. So here's the thing. Stand here. I want to stand between you guys. So this guy here. So we're all doing our college degrees, right? What's your major?
Mechanical engineering.
What's your major?
Film?
All right. Well, he's going to get a job. He's going to get paid a lot more than you anyway. So whatever. You're all good. So you're in better shape just to start with, bro. Whatever. Well, who knows, man? You might be the next, I don't know, whatever. It's all good, right? So listen, man. So Matt here, right? Assume you're in mechanical engineering, right? So the thing is, you have an advantage. You don't know you have the advantage, right? So, a lot of white people think like, well, we don't have the advantage because there are programs for Mustafa. There aren't programs for are you middle class? There aren't programs for middle-class white guys in places like Penn State. You don't like go to the Penn State website and say, any scholarships for middle-class white guys? studying film, like, no, you don't have that. But Mustafa's going to find some scholarships. So it may also be true that when you apply for jobs, if you were an engineering major, then there are going to be some special program that says we need more black engineers. So we're going to really definitely recruit black engineers. And they go out with the decision to definitively get black engineers. And so you're going to benefit from that. And you're not. But you benefit from something else that's invisible and you don't see. And that's a benefit that you have. Like, as a white guy. Like, come on. I'm not making this up. That segment right there. Basically, I've been doing a segment like that for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I have no idea, right? And I don't know. That's it. So here was the first response. Racist professor tells black student that he's inferior. Dude, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah?
It's a good day.
All right, how you feeling about this, what we just did here?
I think it was like a constructive demonstration. As I said in my response, I didn't necessarily know the data that was out there, but I kind of had a feeling based off experiences that have been relayed to me and whatnot.
Uh-huh. So how do you relate to this headline?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, how would you respond to this headline right here? Because this person's talking about you.
That's not necessarily what I derived from our discussion just now. So.
Uh-huh. Could you say more?
Yeah, sure. I think the discussion that we had didn't necessarily make me feel any less of myself.
Uh-huh. So you're not feeling inferior?
No.
All right. Let me ask you, Matt. How's it feel to be singled out?
Like, I didn't really feel too singled out. At what time did you think you were singling me out?
I don't know. I'm just asking you. How's it feel to be singled out?
It feels all right.
Well, here. I mean, yeah, I don't. Okay, here's the next headline. Right? This is Daily Mail. Anger at Penn State sociology professor for singling out random average white guy, because you're the average white guy. Right? So how is that? Does that ring for you?
Not really. Like, reading that, I didn't feel like you really did that. I think you're looking around the crowd trying to find just anybody that, you said before that was white and certain height, certain whatever. But,
all right.
I didn't feel like you made me you weren't boxing me into a certain white guy thing. I think you just picked somebody. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go. Let me go to the next one. Next slide. So here were two. Penn State prof shames white student. So how's that compare? Shames white student and humiliates white student. How's that compare to your experience?
It's very over the top. I don't feel humiliated. I don't feel like you pointed out any privilege that I may have and that I probably do have. I mean, it's just been known in general that white people in this country do have privilege, and
Not all white people, bro. All white people have privilege.
I mean, I wouldn't say every single one, but it's generally especially here at Penn State, just being here, you do have privilege. Just being at college.
Yeah. But remember the last class, right? When we had the two poor white students, and then when we the upper middle class students, and then the upper middle class black students. Black student, right? So remember that. Anyway, I'm just saying. All right. So how about Mustafa? How about you? Do you?
Yeah. So I think the fact that the article specifically mentions you shaming a white student is more telling about the people who wrote the article than the actual situation that happened. Because what we're talking about here, they're real things. It's not made up, as you said. The data shows the privilege that he, as a middle-class white man with the same credentials, the same certifications that I have, has.
Yeah. But again, I want to be clear, and I said this back when I did this segment that they identified, that they connected to. Privilege is relative, right? Like, I don't like even using those words a lot. Like white privilege or privilege is like, but nonetheless, right? So here's what happened, right? So if you go back, can you go back 2 slides? So the first thing was, it's like, okay, we're going to throw this at Sam Richards, and we're going to say he's racist because he's telling the black guy that he's inferior. But that didn't stick. That lasted just a hot minute, and then it was gone. And then it became this one. Oh, he's signaling out a white guy because I pulled him up out of his seat. And I'm like, you're an average white guy, and look, you're walking into the world with all this privilege. But that didn't really stick. And then this other dude, next one, this guy, Andrew Sullivan, is a really well-known blogger. He writes this piece that says, and I'm curious about what you think about this, that student, that white student, should sue that professor.
Yeah, definitely not.
You can sue me if you want.
Yeah, no, I'm not really interested in suing you.
All right. I don't know what you would sue me for. Like, I don't remember from his article or from what he wrote, like what he would sue me for. But this is what happened. This is it, right? So, and there's a way in which, when this first came up with this segment, that I said to myself, it's really odd of all the things that I do in class, that this would be the one, because this is one where this is basic sociology. Like I told my boss, I'm like, all I did was sociology in here, right? That there are these invisible strings and they affect us and we don't see them. And, there are things that benefit Mustafa here in all these situations, right? And there are things that benefit Matt. And it's going away, but it's slow and it's happening and so on. So anyway, yeah. Okay. That's it. So there was a lot of dust up on this. Are you in agreement? A lot of dust up on this one? Dust, yeah. Hey, we'll come back to you. Yeah. All right, Mel. Thanks, bro. Yeah, thanks, man. All right. Can we get a hand? Okay.